2022 Hyundai Kona N. For $35,000, it presents something that's very interesting. You can have a small SUV fun vehicle, which, to be honest, doesn't exist. There's nothing under $40,000 in the SUV category that is as fun as this vehicle. So today, we're going to get behind the wheel and we're going to drive it on back roads, we're going to drive it on town roads, and we're going to drive it on the highway, and we're going to do an extensive walk around to see, does the Kona live up to the hype? Is this $35,000 hot hatch SUV thing worth your time? Well, let's take a look.
As we start with all these in-depth reviews, we begin with the Maroni. 5-star side crash front and rear is very impressive. 4-star rollover, also impressive for a vehicle of this size. Now remember, this is a performance vehicle, and really the only performance car in this class that has well over 35 mpg is the Civic Si. 20 city, 27 on the highway. We will do a full highway mpg test, so stay tuned for that. Now the majority of the parts from this car come from Korea, with only a fraction coming from the US and Canada. When you buy this car new, you get 5-year, 60,000-mile warranty, but more important, you get a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain, which includes track use. The safety suite is extensive: forward collision, lane keep, blind spot, and rear cross traffic are the highlights. And performance means you get that 2-liter turbo with an 8-speed dual clutch, limited slip diff, Engram shift, and power shift, but crazily enough, you get 14.2-inch front brake rotors, which is nuts. Electronic controlled suspension and a variable exhaust just cap off all the performance stuff. N means you get N exclusive front and rear fascias with 19-inch wheels, and in the comfort and convenience section, you get the leather wrap steering wheel with the sport buckets and a Harman Kardon premium audio system. The rest of this is premium Kona stuff, which is all solid. Comfort and convenience side, the biggest thing to note here is you have access to the Hyundai digital key, and there's automatic climate control, which is really nice. And thankfully, Hyundai is super considerate. You get a full fuel tank right from the factory, and hey, it's included. MSRP $34,200. After destination, we're looking at $35,690. Stepping outside the Hyundai Kona N, the easiest way to tell the Kona N apart from a regular Hyundai Kona are the fenders. On the Kona N and N line, the fenders are painted body color, which makes this car look more like a hot hatch and less like a crossover. The red lipstick on the lips and the wheels are what make a Kona N an N versus the N line. Moving our way to the front fascia, and I actually really love it. When the Hyundai Kona first came out, I wasn't a fan of the split headlight design, but now with the facelift and this N-specific front fascia, I'm all in. And while I find it a bit interesting that the outside of the grille gaps are blocked off and there's fake vents in the hood, I think the overall presentation of the front end of this car is very solid. I have grown to really like this double headlight design. As we make our way to the side of the Kona, you are further reminded that the proportions of this car are relatively small. This car is a lifted hatchback. It is nothing more than that, and that is how they sell in the United States. Hyundai could have easily given, oh, hold on, I just got to show you guys this, 14.2-inch front rotors. Those are freaking huge. It's crazy to see that on a car like this. Anyway, back to what I was saying before. In Europe, in the South America, in other regions, they don't have an issue selling hatchbacks. Here they do, so they have to raise them up in order for us to buy them. And thankfully, the Kona N still looks terrific. I love the rear end of this car. That diffuser, those tailpipes, that spoiler, the double light design in the rear, one that controls the taillights, one that controls the blinkers in reverse, all look fantastic. But let's jump inside to find out what makes an N an N.
Stepping inside the Kona N, let's talk about the details and what we see around us. First off, we have the Brands N steering wheel. I love this. The material is great, the padding is great, and it's not too thick. This really is a solid unit, definitely a step above a traditional Kona. On this steering wheel on the right side, we have our cruise control buttons, lane keep here, we'll get into that a little bit later. On the left, you have volume, mode, the Hyundai speak if you want to talk to this car, or in this case, because we have the phone plugged in, we would be talking to Siri. And then you have two buttons here. This one changes drive mode. This one changes into our custom N mode, and we'll get to that later on. And then you have N-grin shift. This is an overboost function, which is awesome and actually does make a difference. Paddle shifters in the correct location, and they are steering wheel mounted, and they seem relatively good. Nothing crazy, right? This isn't like an Alfa Romeo or a GTR with the big clunk, but it's good enough, and they are relatively engaging. Let's start this car up so you guys can see this animation. Nice little sound, nothing crazy. This unit we've gone over before in the Santa Cruz review that we did, so I'm not going to stay on it too long, but when you change between modes, as the valved exhaust turns on, you can see it also change, and it changes very quickly, okay? The stock modes that we have are Eco, Normal, Sport, which opens the valved exhaust, and Snow. I tend to keep it on normal. And then if we go down here, this is currently, you can change these to do different things. Currently, I have this set up to just change through the modes instead of having to deal with this drive mode knob. And then this guy is our N mode. So if we click that, it changes to a very useful screen. On track, it would show you your oil temp and engine temp, your turbo PSI and torque right there. And if we go into the N mode display on this dash, you can, or on the infotainment, you can actually see what we can change. So custom one, I have currently set up to have the engine in its sportiest setting, and then have the exhaust sound on its sportiest setting to open up that valve, the transmission on its sportiest setting, and then everything else in comfort. I view this as sort of like a kind of rambunctious fun way to drive every day, where the engine and transmission are sportier and the exhaust is loud, but everything else is set to comfort. Now, in addition to that, I do like the physical buttons here for the HVAC. You have your temperature control here on the left, and you have your fan control here on the right. This does have auto climate with 3 stages, so you can increase the degree to which you want this cabin to hit your desired temperature. Now we have heated seats. We do not have cooled seats in this car. These are Kona N specific. Different seats in the Elantra N, different seats in the Veloster N. I like these the best. I'm a bigger gentleman, so for me, they fit me perfect. Now, in this center display, we have enough room for a regular sized water bottle. This same water bottle also fits perfectly fine in this door. And you can see we have another smart water over there, and it fits just fine. This is a Qi wireless charging pad, which is great. You have one USB-C here, and you have another USB-A here. This is what you will use for your Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. This is what you would use to primarily charge devices. And then you have another 12 volt here for whatever you want to use it for. Let's hop into the back. You can hear that valved exhaust. All right, looking at the back seat, let's look quickly at the door panels. The material here is fine. This is squishy. Everything else is hard plastic. This is a cheap car, okay? Relative terms, $35,000. What you're getting is relatively cheap, and you can hear it in something like these door panels, okay? This is soft, but this is all hard. Let's get into the back seat. Now in the back seat, I am 6 feet tall, and I am behind my seat, and I am touching the seat in front of me. Okay, so if I was doing a long ride, I would ask the car or the person in front to actually move their seat forward. Now, as far as headroom goes, I do actually have a little bit, but if I put my head all the way back, I'm touching the top. So there's not a ton of room back here. This is a small car, okay? You are not buying something that is large. This is a smaller vehicle. Now, you can see my backpack here. For size, I could have easily put that in the back seat, but hey, it is what it is. 2 cup holders, relatively squishy. We love that. 1 map pocket, not 2. Interesting decision. One charging, USB-A, with a portion for your phone, which is nice. I wish there were two here, but I'll take one. No vents back here, none, zero. There's none here, there's none in the usual Kia spot. That's it. So the ventilation is purely reliant from the front for the back. Now this is a small cabin, so it's fine, but I would have loved to see at least one right here. And there is the size of the trunk. Very small. This is a compact vehicle. Something like the Civic hatch is gonna have a bigger trunk, which means the Integra as well. The Golf is very similar to this car, but the load floor is relatively low and it's pretty flat, which is nice. The seats fold down, which we like, and you do have a little bit of room underneath to organize some things, but none of that matters. Let's get behind the wheel of the Kona N. All right, we are starting off in the around town portion as we make our way to the highway. So what is the Hyundai Kona N like to drive? Well, the first thing you notice is how lovely this steering wheel is. The material is solid, the paddle placement is excellent, and the width and girth of the steering wheel is nice. We love that. So it's a real joy to just hold this steering wheel. So as we make our way around town, you'll notice something. We haven't heard many pops and bangs. Take a listen as we just do some regular acceleration. You don't hear too much. I like that. I like the ability to have a fun car that can be toned down. I like the ability to have a fun car that can be reserved, and that's what this car is. It's not permanently rowdy. It's not pop bang on every release of the acceleration or every upshift. You can have this car in a normal mode and it doesn't do any of that. That is nice. One of the things I do not like though is this suspension. While these dampers are electronically controlled, meaning with each setting it adjusts the dampers as well, everyone is too stiff. Every single setting for this is too stiff, and the sports setting for this car, if you have a filling you just put in, it will bounce it out. In fact, on track, I would actually prefer to have this car in its normal setting for the dampers, because unless you're on a brand new, freshly paved F1 track, it's too stiff. It's just way too stiff. So to summarize, around town, the NVH of the Kona N is remarkably low. It's actually pretty quiet in here and allows you to enjoy a podcast or the radio or the music, whatever you're listening to. In normal mode, it's relatively quiet. You don't hear any pop bangs, and it's super comfortable, so it's just fine. And if you want to let your hair down a little bit around town, you can put it in N mode, or you can put on the sport mode. You can let that exhaust go. You hear the pops on upshift, and on downshift, if you let off, you can hear the pops and bangs too. So you have that duality for this car around town that makes it really, really awesome. The suspension is a little bit stiff though, so any imperfections or potholes or things like that, you will feel regardless of setting, and it will knock your filling out if you're in its sportest setting. So all of those things you need to keep in mind. All right, we're gonna be getting up to speed here, and you know what we like to do on this channel. When we have a fun car, we put it in its sportiest setting and we ship it. So I'm gonna shift down to the second gear. Listen to how snappy the upshifts are on this car. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. And that was 75, folks, just like that. This car is a rocket. All right, we're gonna take it out of N mode and we're gonna put it on regular, because that's how most people cruise. So right now we're cruising at 60 miles an hour and it has us pegged at 1500. Let's see where we go when we increase to normal speeds, like say 75 miles an hour. At 75 miles an hour, we're right at that 2,000 RPM mark. We do hear a little bit of NVH, and that suspension that I was talking about does rear its ugly head around things like this, like an expansion joint. You do feel that. Now the car is relatively comfortable though. What I mean is it's confident. So at speed, you do feel really stable, even feels something like this that has a short wheelbase, but the tire noise and the NVH that starts to come in this cabin at speed is a little bit higher and unwanted. Take a listen. Overall though, the Kona N is pretty good on the highway. The only better option in this space really is the GTI for comparable money. That car is a brick house on the highway, but this car is a little more rambunctious, so that's the trade-off you're getting. Let's go to the back roads where the Kona N really shines. All right, now we're at the home of the Kona N, and that is a back road, a twisty, windy road that maybe you take at the end of your commute or somewhere where you just want to have fun. You get to clear your thoughts, you get to relax. This is where this car shines. Let's slowly go out here and let's get it on. So for this drive, we're actually gonna put the car in the N mode setting that I have developed for fun back road driving. That gives me the aggressive engine, that gives me the aggressive transmission, that gives me the exhaust note, but everything else in its comfort setting. The weighting on the steering wheel is very, very nice. This Kona N has a damn good turn-in. This car is awesome, and the carving differential, otherwise known as a limited slip diff, does a great job in masking the fact that this Kona N is front-wheel drive. It is not an all-wheel drive car like maybe you would believe because it's an SUV. Now, when you have the exhaust opened, you have all these pops and crackles. Take a listen, which is hilarious. Good turn in here, and the diff is really great. When you floor it, it just pulls you around the corner. This car doesn't have much understeer, which is nice. This transmission works very well, guys. Look, watch, we're gonna do some downshifts here. Watch this. Click, click, it'll even shift into first, and then on upshifts, one, no problem, right? This is a very good wet dual clutch. Pretty confident that was Tedward. Who knows? Shout out to Tedward, that guy's the best. The brakes on this car are fantastic. You have 14-inch rotors in the front with an N-specific brake caliper. Now we're gonna probably go to like 40 miles an hour and just stand on the brakes right over this hill. We got no one behind us, so it is the perfect time to do so. A lot of people are out today, so we're not gonna drive like a total hooligan, but we still get the idea of how this car is on a back road without going like 80 miles an hour in a 30, okay? You don't have to do that in order to understand a car's potential. Now stand on the brakes here. The car auto shifts to first so you don't stall it, which we love to see, and it is straight and direct, okay? You have a lot of confidence in the pedal. This car is overall very well set up. In this N mode setting, you also get your oil temp gauge right there and your engine temp gauge right there as well, so you can monitor that. Obviously, that doesn't necessarily matter on a back road like this, but on track, it would be great to follow along with those settings so that you can see how the car does. And I've never had any overheating issue, but we'll see on a track day if that's the case. All right, folks, we are back inside the Kona N. Let's talk about some final thoughts. How does this car stack up to its competition? While the Volkswagen GTI might have more premium materials and might be more isolated on the highway, but it is nowhere near as fun, it is nowhere near as dynamic as this Kona is on the back road, on track, or in a fun environment. Cars like the Corolla GR have a similar MSRP in their base form, but in order to get things like heated seats, or in the Corolla GR where you want both diffs, you're going to be spending nearly $40,000, which is $5,000 more than this Kona N. And let's be honest, at the time of this video, the GR is impossible to get. The WRX tries to do what the Kona N does, but it doesn't do it nearly as well. It's an all-arounder, but the Kona N edges it out in every single category except one: suspension. This car does ride rough. This car is a throwback to late 90s, early 2000s sporty machines where the suspension is stiffer, where the suspension is harder. While this car is comfy, you gotta keep that thing in mind. The WRX, the GTI are all more compliant over bumps and are more comfortable to drive day to day. So if you're considering a Hyundai Kona N, know this: It is incredibly fun, and its ability to let its hair down, open up the valves in that exhaust, give you all the pops and cracks, and then in the same car, turn all that off and just be a regular Kona is hilarious. I'm Money Shift. Don't forget to follow. We got a ton of videos coming on this car. We're going to be modifying it to try to make that suspension issue go away by changing the suspension to new coilovers. We're going to be putting new wheels and tires on it. We're going to be going to the track. We're going to be doing MPG tests, infotainment tests, the whole nine. All the Kona N information is going to be covered as we do with every car we own on this channel. I'm Money Shift. I will see you all in the next one. Thank you for all the continued support. Talk soon.